think massive, start small.
Think massive, start small.
Make sure that small thing works, and then add to it, and then add to it, and then add to it. And make sure each building block works. And the cash flow is still king like any other business.
Global Socialpreneurs is brought to you in part by Positive Talk Radio, KKNW 1150 AM in Seattle. Check them out at www.positivetalkradio.net.
Welcome to Global Socialpreneurs, a one-of-a-kind talk show showcasing expert social entrepreneurs. Learn their stories and their secrets to creating a sustainable impact. Now, here is your host, social entrepreneur Anne Scotland.
Welcome back to Global Socialpreneurs. We're so glad you are here today. Thanks for joining us again. We are so excited to be streaming on so many channels now, and we're excited for your support. And we'd love to hear from you. So you can find our info, drop us a line. We'd love to hear from you. My name's Anne Scotland, and what we're doing at this show is we're talking about global social entrepreneurship. What does it mean? We're trying to create more awareness around this conversation and talk about how you and people you know can get involved in social entrepreneurship, why that's so important, and hear from incredible people who are doing it now and have been doing this for a long time, who can give us some advice about how it works and a vision for the future. So today, my guest is EddieCapstick. I've been looking forward to having him on the show for a while. You're going to love Eddie. He's a London-based social entrepreneur doing work on a global scale, and he works in the digital industry, which he also brings his academic and legal background, which I discovered when I was looking up stuff about Eddie. Eddie is the founder of Worthwhile Studios, building digital games for good. We definitely want to hear more about that and about some of the work he did with Google's social innovation projects. He's the co-founder of AppyMaps, a tool created to digitally map the global impact system. There's so much more I could say, but instead, please help me welcome EddieCapstick. Hi, Eddie.
How's it going? How are you?
I am good. How are you? So Eddie, I'm so glad to have you here. Thank you. Really excited. I've been looking forward to this. And our viewers are going to really enjoy this. I know they are. So Eddie, you're a socialpreneur.
I try to be. And probably even I'm now trying to go 2 steps higher, I think. Which is that. Another thing.
What is that? I have to know now.
So going more so beyond social enterprise, there's a couple of steps higher where you become regenerative. So you're not just looking at social enterprise as one silo. You're looking at it in the whole holistic round of everything that's going on, and basically you're trying to heal the soil because we've degenerated it so much that we need to start practicing healing on the soil, and then that builds everything back up again, including us.
Wow, I love that. That's really amazing. So you have had a very fascinating and varied career. When did the subject of social entrepreneurship first get your attention?
I'll give some context. So I was part of the .com boom, building e-commerce stuff. And we floated in 2001 for £240 million at London Stock Exchange, or AIM. But that quickly turned, and that we lost a lot of our share price. But in the end, I quickly went to Nepal, and I was there on business and stuff, doing other things. And I went on the Kathmandu FM, did some silly things, and then they turned it into blind date. And I had to ask the question of the people of Kathmandu who would call up on a boy line and a girl line. It's really progressive for 2001. I haven't seen it elsewhere. And I asked them, what's the naughtiest thing you've ever done? So people called up, and the naughtiest thing was actually from a guy who'd locked his uncle in the toilet on his uncle's wedding day, which is pretty naughty.
That's pretty bad.
But the one that got chosen, and I got the sound engineer to choose it. She was a girl, she was a model, she'd had a fight with a photographer because she didn't want to do something, and she was being a little bit of a diva, she sort of said. So that was quite naughty. So I went on a blind date with her. And she was lovely, and we've met up a couple of times afterwards, but it was the restaurant we went to that probably changed my life. So as we walked in, we were given menus which just had pictures on it, right? And
Oh
so
yeah.
all we had to do, we sat down, and there was a small smirk on her face, like something's going on that I don't know about that she does. And I go, okay, tell me what's going on with the pictures. This isn't normal, is it? And she went, no. When the waiter comes, all you have to do, don't say anything, just point at the picture of the food that you want. Why? Because all the waiters are deaf and dumb. They've turned their disability into an ability, so it doesn't matter what language you speak, you would just have to point at the food. That changed my life completely. It's like suddenly anything is possible if you just have the right mindset.
Wow. Wow. That is amazing. And
Yeah.
then from that incredible story, what attracted you to social entrepreneurship as opposed to, let's say, just a traditional sort of career in nonprofit work? What really got you
Right.
about social entrepreneurship?
So I was doing a PhD at UCL in London, and it was
Good
on
school.
people who are addicted to computer games, video games. And I was particularly looking at immersion and how do people get to the flow state and stuff. But there was an event that came up, and it said focus on the positive. So you had to pitch an idea based upon your research that you might win some money at. So I pitched an idea that was basically a a way of doing advertising that was for good, rather than the necessary evil that everyone thinks it is. So it was on a screen. So here, and on the screen there would be a video playing like normal, but this a little coin would get bigger. The longer you watch these good videos, it's only for B Corps and social enterprise and stuff and charities, but the coin would get bigger on the screen. So surrounding the outside here, you could swipe the coin to that good cause, that charity, this thing you want to help fundraise, and do it that way. And I think that's still a paradigm that's still waiting to happen, I think.
Wow.
So
That's
I
really
won some money for
exciting,
that, and
actually.
suddenly I wanted to find, other people doing social enterprise, and that kickstarted. I stopped doing the PhD. I didn't finish it, partly due to health reasons as well. But yeah, that really that got me the bug. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
That's so exciting. So clearly, and you've been doing this now for quite a while. So what is it about social entrepreneurship? What do you think it can do for the world over the next 10 to 20 years? What is your vision? What do you think is possible?
So personally, I think it can take away the feeling of, when people use that phrase, it's just business, which means they're selling their grandma, right? Nothing is just business anymore. Everything should be personal. Everything should be, making choices, not just for you, not just for your family, but or the whole supply chain. So I think when it comes to social enterprise, that's what I mean by the next two steps. Some social enterprises just focus on one issue, and it's just a little slice of the big pie that we need to live in within this with this sort of planetary system. And so the more people make those better choices, then all the social enterprises can actually then band together and create a much more of a social system, whereby business is not just business. It is trying to really regenerate society and the planet itself at the same time. So we're all just much happier people, just buying things from friends or people we care about, selling to people we care about. Because when you walk into a shop and you know the owner or you know the person behind the till, it's so much better experience.
Wow.
It's just nice to be there with people, and growing things that are helping heal the soil at the same time, not using pesticides. I mean, these things, it's not that hard. It turns out.
Mm-mm.
It turns out that regenerative farming is actually sometimes cheaper than using all the pesticides and using all the stuff
Mhm.
all the fertilizer that people put on. And then you're not killing the rivers and you're not killing the soil. And wow, so who knew you'd have to plant like companion plants next to other ones, so they'll help to the nettles will stop this and the things will stop that, and they'll help each other grow. And then you move the bands to the next field, and it's like, wow, we're really changing the way that we're thinking about it.
I
Um,
absolutely love that. I love that. The companion plants. Anyway,
yeah,
that could be a whole
yeah.
nother episode because that's fascinating. And I love talking about that. So speaking of agricultural environments, you spent some time in Hyderabad, India, working with Unlimited Hyderabad. and their social entrepreneur incubator programs. So as a social entrepreneur yourself, what was your greatest takeaway from that experience?
So it was beautiful. So the organization I went there with was called Social Starters, which has now renamed itself Regenerous. Like so they've moved on, right? This was 8 years ago. And we went there, and it was the first ever event they did. And so it was brand new. And it was the first week, it was a 6-week program. The first week was a boot camp to train anyone with any background, even a virtual background, that you could train them to be a social enterprise consultant. And then after that week, you'd then be paired up with local social entrepreneurs for another 5 weeks. And you got really quite close to the people that you were working with, because you spent most days with them. And you were running workshops with them. You were going through sort of your 1-page business plan, the marketing, the funding. And the guy that I and this other lady was put with, Abdul, he had an amazing story where his social enterprise was really based 8 hours away by train. So we went to his local village. No white people had ever been there before. So I was called Mr. Hollywood, and people would trail around afterwards, and the kids were so sweet. But being the first person there, it was quite odd for 2015. But here's his social enterprise, which is perfectly circular, right? So this goes beyond almost every other social enterprise I've ever met. So it starts off with a weed in the local lake, which grows to full maturation in about 50 days. He hires men to take the weed out. So that's the first set of employment. And again, it grows back. So, and you're helping to clear the lake of mosquitoes and stuff. So there's real positive benefit of just doing that. Then the women take this weed and they cut it and they dry it in sort of on the land. And all the cuts go into a bio filter sort of thing, which then can be used to help local farmers. So even the cuts off the weeds are going to help. So there's no waste. And then the women from day 0 are paid, even though they know nothing about weaving, right? They know nothing about weaving, and they're paid to learn from day 0. And there's levels. So over the next 3 years, they then get trained to do more and more complex things. And then the beauty of it is they're also trained to speak English. They're also given business skills. And by the end of 3 years, they can either stay with what they're doing, or they can go back to their local village and set up in competition the exactly same company. And they are asked if that's what you want to do, or you can stay with us. It's up to you. It's fine. Wow. So there is no waste. It's completely circular, and it's almost spiral, because they're trying to spiral up the level of the impact they're having. And they're making beautiful mats and shoes and A4 sort of folders and binders and loads of different things. Bags. There's lots of bags.
I like bags. That's good.
Yeah. And the firm is called Alika, which in Hindi means weave.
Huh.
Which
wow.
is just, and I mean, it's almost a perfect example of what I think the circular, social, the ability to give people the independence if they so desire. I think that's just one of my favorites.
That kind of just takes my words away, because it is such an outstanding example from the sourcing to all the way through to the top. How incredible. And what I like to say is, if someone in that environment can be that creative with so few resources, sometimes we have so many resources in our world that we stop being as creative as we could be, because we just take everything for granted. But you can be creative with so little and accomplish so much, which is incredibly beautiful.
Remember, India has 1.4 billion people. So when they talk about scaling up, it's a completely different level of scaling up than we do in the Western world. Completely different.
Right? Oh my goodness. Absolutely. Gosh. Yeah. When I think about how many people are in the world, and in that one country alone, I have an adopted brother from Pakistan.
Oh,
and
cool.
So I, even though he's Americanized because he grew up in my family, we've always had sort of this shared interest in that region. And I've always been really fascinated with India. Really amazing country and incredible people. Well, hey, everybody, our viewers, we're going to take a quick break just for producing reasons. So if you'll hold on for a few seconds, we'll take that break now, and we'll be right back.
I think that the work that SCOTTLIN is doing with global socialpreneurs is truly magnificent. I think so many times people are locked into this idea that we either can make an impact or we can earn an income, and it's truly possible to do both. And we don't have to have a perfect plan from A to Z, fully baked, of how we're going to get there. But I think that the idea that she's planting the seed and encouraging people to start where they are and to get into action right now and to truly collaborate with others to quicken the pace at which it takes to really learn, right, how to become successful global socialpreneur. I think it's fantastic. And I think the more people that can listen in and support and share, the quicker we get to building a brighter world together.
Okay, welcome back. I'm here with EddieCapstick, and we were talking about social entrepreneurship around the world. We were just talking about India, and I want to move on to ask you something else. So a few years ago, Eddie, you were the director of Make Sense in London. And how is it that you helped over 80,000 volunteers build enterprises around the world?
It's got a little bigger since then. And I was a director. There was about 10 or 12 of us at the time. We're trialing a different way of having the volunteers to sort of direct this massive organization. It's now gone up to 300,000 volunteers that have been activated in possibly over 200 countries. And because they went more professional than just using volunteers, they're now, it's mainly based in Paris, but it is global. But they're now sitting on €100 million seed fund to actually, which is similar to $100 billion. It's not percent, and it's there to seed fund social entrepreneurs. So this started about 13 years ago in Paris. 4 people, and they weirdly they were also traveling around India looking for social entrepreneurs. Who's doing the good stuff? And they didn't really. It was quite difficult to find. So when they came back to Paris, they designed this design thinking workshop to help local social entrepreneurs, and this just went massive. So there was hotspots everywhere, and all it took for one person to be trained was pretty quick. It was a few hours, and then suddenly they could then offer this design thinking workshop, which solved an issue, a small issue, not the whole business, but just solved an issue with a local social entrepreneur, and it was always free. It was free for the local social entrepreneur. It was free for all the volunteers who were there, unless we were doing a long weekend, and that's quite a different. That was an unconference festival, and we ran about 100 of those around the world.
Wow!
And I just got in. So when I was looking for social entrepreneurs, Make Sense was the first organization I found, and went to their festival in London and fell in love with just such positive people. I classed almost everyone I met over those few years as a really good person, never mind friend. And most of them are still working, especially the ones in Paris. They don't often leave. But if they do leave, they definitely come back.
That's amazing. And started by 4 people.
Yeah.
Started by 4 people. That's incredible.
And now one of them is on a program with Barack Obama. So he's doing sort of real leadership things with that sort of thing, and he's a climate activist. So he's big on activism. Another one has joined Extinction Rebellion, which again is all about activism. So they're not just thinkers, these guys. These guys are doers, and they're getting involved at high and low levels. And it's really lovely to see the sort of grassroots meets higher echelons. It's great.
That's incredible. And only in 13 years too. That's actually just absolutely mind-blowing. But I love this because this gives our viewers an idea of what is possible in a relatively short period of time. I mean, if you can go from 4 people to 300,000 in 13 years, specifically around the concept and practice and training of social entrepreneurship, what else could be possible? I know I talk to some of my friends who are always saying everyone in the world should actually be a social entrepreneur. You could almost do it. You could almost do it because in some way or another, we can all participate either in the social entrepreneurship in itself, either by being parts of the social enterprise, whether we're providers, buyers, employees, whatever that is. There is a way to be involved that can really touch anyone. So also, I know you're the tech guy. You like work in the gaming industry, which must be fun. You're the founder of Worthwhile Studios. I love that name, by the way. Worthwhile Studios, creating what you say, games for good. Is that a social enterprise, or either way? We'd love to hear about what that is.
So it is. It's still more of an idea than it is a proper business, because
Mhm,
what
mhm.
what I was looking for, and I was running workshops with different groups of people. So I was running design for games workshops with autistic children, teenagers, and also with adults who were on social enterprise programs. So I was doing very similar workshop, but obviously delivered very differently. But the outcome was the same. People were designing games for good, not necessarily with code. It was more the thought process, the design process, design
Mm.
thinking process of which they would go through. So, who is it for? Why do you want to, do you want to design this for them, and where are they going to play it? And especially with the autistic children,
Mhm.
they were brilliant at this.
I
They were
bet.
quite shy to begin with, but once you
Mhm.
tell them they're designing a video game, that shyness just dissipates. It just goes, and they start getting excited. And you go, okay, let's make a treasure hunt game. Okay, and the pirate's going to be over here, and we have to run away and follow the map and find the Xbox. They were coming up loads of ideas,
Wow.
and
Those
at
kids
the end,
inspire me so much. They're just brilliant.
and I got them to come up with a sound of the game, so a little sound and a movement, usually a sort of a dance movement that a little character might do. And again, they were quite shy because they had to present to all the staff and their families. Right? So this is quite a big deal. But the whole point
Yeah.
of this charity called Action for Kids, AFK, it's the whole point of it is to actually give the kids confidence and go out into the
Wow.
workplace and get a job.
That's
And
incredible.
one by one, they came up and they went through the game. And I had to prompt them every now and again. But when it got to the sound and the audience laughed, and then they did the dance move, and everyone was in fits of giggles, and they knew that they'd caused that. At the end of the presentation, the best hugs ever did I get. Oh, and then they go, I want to do another one. What and this couldn't stop. It was
Oh,
just one of those magical, every time we ran it, it was just magical.
that is absolutely beautiful. I actually am gonna have to ask you more about that at another time as well, because I was just fascinated by that. And some of the other people that are working in similar industries and for similar groups. But I'm going to move on because recently you co-founded AppyMaps, which is helping connect citizens to social impact communities.
Yeah.
How are you mapping the global impact ecosystem?
So a couple of ways. We started, and I started something called the Social Enterprise Experience Tours. And I wanted a way to actually run a walking tour to go and meet the founders of the local social enterprises, wherever we were. And the easiest way to do that was to build a map so you could literally see on the map where they were. So it started really as a personal thing for me, just to help me run walking tours and find out the founders why, because the why story is one of the most powerful things around, helping to empathy, and you really you don't forget a why story with such power. And so from that, I started building sort of events. So because it wasn't just people are interested in maps, sure, but people want to know what events they can go along to, what can I be part of and stuff. And then that's okay, that's interesting. So how do we run a map and an event space? I know. Let's create an app where you've got maps, events. Oh yeah, we can add news. Oh, we can add jobs in there, so people can get jobs in the social impact space. Okay, and then hang on, we could add products, and then we could do affiliated marketing, and then we could generate some money to help run this thing. And then hang on a minute, there's hundreds, possibly thousands of communities that want their own app, which will shut like a plastic-free communities all over the world. Imagine that you've got all the shops, the plastic-free shops. You've got all the events might want to go to. I don't, that sort of thing. Plastic-free events, of course. Then you've got the news of what's going on around the world about new plastics that aren't plastic and they can be biodegradable. And then you've got products which are not plastic-based, and you can go and find that sort of thing. So imagine how. So the idea in the long term is to build that platform that can host loads of communities having their own app with all of
Mm,
those kinds of things within it.
I
But
absolutely love that.
we're looking for a CTO. So although I've got a tech background and
Mhm.
I was developing e-commerce stuff, and my very first job was in virtual reality a long time ago, 1996. I was in a virtual reality lab. So it's coming back again now. So it's having its second revolution. Um,
And for our audience, bear that in mind. He's looking for a CTO. So I know a lot of tech people watch this
Yeah.
show. So if you know someone that might love to get involved with this social enterprise, AppyMaps, shout out to Eddie. His
And the
information
reason
is
the reason it's called
streaming here on the screen.
yeah, the reason it's called AppyMaps is because my co-founder Gianpietro is Italian, and he said, "It's AppyMaps, yeah, it's AppyMaps," and it just spawned from there. That yes, we've got apps, yes, we've got maps, but also it's just Appy.
That is wonderful. I absolutely love
Yeah.
it. Even sounds fun. Wow, our time is flying. We have to take another quick break. So bear with us. We'll be right back with EddieCapstick. Global Socialpreneurs is brought to you in part by Positive Talk Radio, KKNW 1150 AM in Seattle. Check them out at www.positivetalkradio.net. All right, I'm back interviewing EddieCapstick today from London, who is telling us about a wide variety of social entrepreneurships and enterprises he has started or been involved in over the years, and what he and many of his coworkers are doing to improve living conditions around the world in so many communities in so many ways, from on the ground in Hyderabad to tech advancements and gaming for autistic kids. We've gotten so much more in already. I can't even begin to start, but I want to move up to what's happening now. So now you're co-creating a global map. So again, maps of eco villages and regenerative communities. And you're planning to visit as many as you can next year. Tell us about that and tell our viewers, what's an eco village?
Right. So during COVID, I had to take a step back from AppyMaps to look after my dad, who had Alzheimer's. And he died in December last year. His last 3 words to me, and this is weird because he wasn't like this kind of person. His last 3 words were "Save the Earth." Tingles. Because although he knew I was on this sort of path of social enterprise, he didn't know anything about soil or anything like that. It was delivered in a very weird and wonderful way. And since then, I've been on loads and loads of courses all over the world with regenerative communities. And we're co-creating this map of all where the eco villages and regenerative communities are. Now, what is an eco village? Well, that's kind of the point of going to see them, because there are so many varied ones. There's some which are adults only. There's some which are sex positive, which has a whole host of different meanings. And then there's ones about schooling children. There's ones about farming. There are so many different types. And
what's the principle behind it? Like, we still don't even know, many of our listeners won't know what is the principle behind it. Is an eco village something that already exists, or is it something you create from scratch? What is it?
It's a little bit of both. Again, there's one near Brussels in Belgium, which has just families have come together and they've got businesses right there. They call it the third way. So the first way is just living at home. The second way is just going somewhere to work. The third way this is what they call their eco village, is the whole thing, where you're completely living. I mean, they're being supported by the locals as well. They're not totally building a bubble, but all of the businesses are totally integrated in the land, and it's all about just helping each other. Just simply as you've got wider families. The kids all go to school, and the teachers are living within the community. And the parents will often just look after the kids on the one side, and people are working and doing this, and everyone's just helping each other.
So this is almost like, except that it's becoming more and more of an established practice, but this is almost a social experiment, if you will, on what if we created a village from scratch with intention instead of just by accident.
Yes, exactly.
And
so definitely intention.
Live it in an planet from an eco way, and be a regenerative community. And by regenerative communities, I'm assuming you also mean the same, self-sustaining and creating a long-term impact.
That's the goal. So the goal is definitely self-sustaining. It's a bit like a social enterprise. You're not really a social enterprise if you've got funding year by year, right? You've got to be a self-sustaining business. But there are some big ones that have fallen by the wayside recently, and Probably the most known, perhaps in India, is Oroville,
Mm,
which now the local government is fighting against the open democracy. So they're burning down the forest, which they've created
mm,
over 50 years. They started with a desert.
mm.
Absolute, there was nothing there, not even scrub brush in most places. And they've built a rainforest. And the local government doesn't like this because if you walk into Oroville without any money, you don't need money to walk in there. You will be sheltered. You'll be fed. All you have to do is help do stuff around
Mhm,
the entire. And there's now multiple villages, so it's really
mm.
grown from this intentional of these few people who wanted to start something good. Um, and that's happening all over. But on the other side, there's loads more new eco villages being founded and being set up. Some are being founded by couples, some are being founded by groups of families, some are now 30, 40 families. So the size is all dependent on what you want to do and
Mhm,
how you want to grow. And if you just want a small thing, then that's called co-living, and that could be regenerative too, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a village. So
mhm.
there's a small difference between village and co-living, but it's all a bit
Wow.
blurry. There's a lot of blurring
Wow.
in between.
Wow. Okay. So, but it's an intentional living.
Yeah.
And is this usually started by people on the ground who organically live in a place, or is it usually people who decide to come together in one location and build this sort of a place? What is more common? I'm sure there's both, but
Yeah, so there's both. But I think at the moment, I would say it's more that people intended to go somewhere to live together rather than living locally.
yes.
That's
Okay.
absolutely
Yes.
on. I mean, Facebook and all the
Mhm.
channels, all the social media channels are full of people going, "Hey, we're looking to go here. Does anyone know of a place where we could co-live and teach our children and live
Right.
on the land?" And there's low. I mean, honestly, if you once you start joining those channels, you'll just see how many people are planning to do that.
I think
Um,
that's one of the biggest surprises that people tell me they go away with from this show is that they just had no idea how prevalent this already was. And if you're one of those people, that's awesome. You're in our ranks. We're happy you're spreading the news. But so many of the average person just doesn't know. Very educated people even. They just don't know. They just don't see it.
so that's exactly why we're building the map to share it with
Gosh.
everybody. And just before I came on the show, I'm building a fundraising or a funding proposal so that we can fund a documentary team to come around. And when we could do low, I mean, we're global. We're not going to use any planes. We're going to be ethically traveling as much as possible. So we'll sail across to America. We'll sail across to Australia and New Zealand and stuff. We're thinking of getting social enterprise cargo ships involved and
Mm,
things like that because there's quite a
wow.
few dotting around. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Wow, that is amazing. So it may be a documentary but what your primary purpose for this trip is just what?
Well, to absolutely learn and actually see what's working, what's not.
Mhm.
To see how all the different, how is it founded? Is it still
Mhm.
true to its founding principles, its values, its ecosophy, which is a new word I learned a few days ago, which is lovely. It's yeah, the philosophy of eco. Okay, I can't. That's lovely.
Ecoscopy?
Ecosophy. So it's a bit like philosophy.
Ecosophy.
It's like philosophy,
Ah,
but for eco. It's yeah,
I love that.
ecosophy.
I'm a total wordsmith addict.
Yeah.
So yes, thank you. That's really
Um,
great.
if people are religious, I'm not. But if people are religious, there was a new word called Godfidence, which
Oh, I
religious
like that
people
too.
absolutely love. It's like I've got Godfidence now. I've got Godfidence in
That's
you.
amazing.
So I love that too. There's some
Well,
great
we'll
words
have to
being
talk some other day.
created.
I have a couple other words I'm searching for, so maybe you open your ears and look for me. That's really incredible. Well, I hope that that venture goes very well. I can't wait to. I hope you'll be sharing it with us on social media, and hopefully getting footage along the way because that would be super exciting. And I know there's a lot of other people I know who would be super excited about that as well. Our time has just gone so incredibly fast. My last question for you is just if you could give one piece of advice to early stage social entrepreneurs, what might that be?
Right. Think massive, start small.
Think
So
massive, start small.
make sure that small thing works, and then add to it, and then add to it, and then add to it, and make sure each building block works. And the